The pipe wrench slipped from my greasy fingers and clattered against the concrete floor of my basement workshop. 3 in the morning, and I was fixing another leak while my wife Elena was upstairs, probably dreaming about someone else's hands on her body. The irony wasn't lost on me. I built houses for a living, but couldn't keep my own marriage from falling apart. I'm Nick Parrish, 38 years old, owner of Parrish Construction. My hands are calloused from 20 years of honest work. My back aches from carrying lumber and dreams. And my heart? Well, my heart was about to get ripped out and stomped on by a woman who used to tell me I was her hero. The basement door creaked open above me. Elena's heels clicked against the wooden steps. Expensive heels, the kind that cost more than my crew made in a day. She appeared in the doorway wearing a black dress that hugged her curves like a second skin, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the late hour. "Still playing with your tools, Nick?" Her voice dripped with disdain. "Some of us have real jobs that require actual thinking." I looked up from the pipe, taking in her appearance. The dress was wrinkled in all the wrong places, her lipstick was smeared, and there was something on her neck that looked suspiciously like a hickey. My stomach twisted, but I kept my voice steady. "Late meeting again?" I asked, wiping my hands on a rag. "Very important client." She examined her manicured nails, avoiding my eyes. "You wouldn't understand the complexities of public relations." Elena worked for Meridian Architecture, our biggest competitor. She'd started there 6 months ago, right around the time she began working late and coming home smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. "Right," I said, standing up slowly. "Must be some client to keep you out until 3 a.m. Her green eyes flashed with irritation. "Don't start with your jealous husband routine, Nick. It's pathetic." "Pathetic?" The word hit me like a slap. "You know what's pathetic, Elena? The fact that you think I'm stupid enough to believe your lies." She laughed, a cold sound that echoed off the concrete walls. "Lies. You're paranoid. Maybe if you spent less time in this dungeon and more time trying to better yourself, you'd understand what ambition looks like." I stepped closer, studying her face in the harsh fluorescent light. The hickey was definitely there, purple and fresh. "Ambition, huh? Is that what we're calling it now?" "I don't have time for this." She turned to leave, then paused on the stairs. "Oh, and Nick, I canceled our honeymoon trip to Italy. The money would be better spent on something worthwhile." My blood ran cold. We'd been planning that trip for 2 years, saving every penny. It was supposed to be our second honeymoon, a chance to reconnect and save our marriage. "You canceled it?" My voice came out as a whisper. "The tickets, the hotel, everything. I used the money to buy some new clothes for work. Real clothes, not the bargain basement garbage you're used to seeing me in." Something inside me snapped. 20 years of marriage, and she threw away our dream trip like it was nothing. I walked over to the workbench, where I kept important documents, and pulled out the folder containing our trip itinerary. The confirmation numbers, the romantic restaurant reservations I'd made months in advance, the museum tickets, all worthless now. "You want to talk about pathetic?" I said, climbing the stairs behind her. "Let's talk about pathetic." In our bedroom, I opened her walk-in closet and grabbed her newest designer handbag, a $3,000 Louis Vuitton she'd bought last week. Then I picked up the black cocktail dress she'd worn to some work function the previous weekend. Elena's eyes widened as she realized what I was doing. "Nick, put those down." I walked to our bedroom window, opened it, and tossed both items out into the rain-soaked yard below. "Nick!" She ran to the window, watching her precious belongings land in a puddle of mud. "Are you insane? That bag cost more than your truck." "Good thing you make so much money at your important job," I said calmly. "You can buy another one." Mood. For the first time in months, I saw genuine emotion on her face, panic. She rushed outside in her bare feet, trying to salvage the muddy handbag. I watched from the window as she slipped and fell, her perfect hair getting soaked, her makeup running down her cheeks. When she came back inside, dripping wet and furious, I was sitting on the edge of our bed with a beer in my hand. "You're going to replace those," she snarled. "No," I said simply. "I'm not." She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. "What's gotten into you?" "Maybe I'm finally waking up." The next morning, Elena left for work without saying goodbye. I was drinking coffee in my kitchen when I heard footsteps on the front porch. Through the window, I saw our mail carrier walking away. I opened the front door and found the usual bills and advertisements, but tucked between them was a plain white envelope with no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a message typed in simple black font. "You deserve better. She's with Brady Kessler from Meridian. Everyone knows but you. A friend. Brady Kessler. I knew the name. He was Meridian's rising star architect, the guy who designed those pretentious loft buildings downtown. 40 years old, divorced, drove a red Porsche and wore suits that probably cost more than most people's rent. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the letter. Part of me wanted to crumple it up and pretend I'd never seen it. But deep down, I'd known something was wrong for months. The late nights, the new clothes, the way Elena flinched when I touched her. My phone buzzed with a text from Terry Morrison, my project manager and closest friend. Coffee? Got some news about the Henderson project. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from Terry at Darla's Diner, the kind of place where construction workers and cops grabbed breakfast before their shifts. Terry was ex-military, built like a linebacker, with gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. You look like hell, he said, stirring sugar into his coffee. Rough night. I showed him the anonymous letter. Terry read it twice, his jaw tightening. Shit, Nick, I'm sorry. You knew. I suspected. Darla mentioned seeing Elena at the Riverside Hotel bar a few times, with some slick-looking guy in an expensive suit. I didn't want to say anything without being sure. Darla Martinez owned the diner and knew everyone's business in our small city of Millbrook. If she'd seen Elena with Brady, half the town probably knew about it. What are you going to do? Terry asked. I don't know yet. I stared out the window at the gray October morning. But I'm done being the fool. That afternoon, I called my nephew Zane, who worked in IT security for a tech company downtown. At 25, he was everything I wasn't: college-educated, tech-savvy, and cynical about relationships. Uncle Nick? He sounded surprised to hear from me. What's up? I need a favor. A technical favor. 2 hours later, Zane was in my basement workshop with a laptop and several devices I didn't recognize. This is probably illegal, he said, connecting something to Elena's laptop while she was at work. But if she's cheating, you have a right to know. Can you clone her phone? If I can get it for 5 minutes, yeah. But Uncle Nick, are you sure you want to go down this road? Sometimes ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is what got me here in the first place. That evening, Elena came home around 11, claiming she'd been at a client dinner. While she was in the shower, I grabbed her phone from the nightstand and handed it to Zane, who was waiting in the basement. 5 minutes, he whispered. It felt like an eternity, but Zane worked quickly. When Elena came out of the bathroom in her silk robe, her phone was exactly where she'd left it. The next morning, Zane called me at the construction site. Uncle Nick, you need to sit down. I was standing on the second floor of a house we were framing, watching my crew install windows. The October wind whipped through the open structure, carrying the scent of sawdust and coming rain. Just tell me, there are hundreds of texts between her and this Brady guy, photos too, and Uncle Nick, they're planning something, some kind of trip together next weekend. My grip tightened on the phone. What kind of trip? Looks like a weekend getaway to Chicago. She told him she canceled your Italy trip to pay for it. I closed my eyes, feeling the wind cut through my jacket. Send me everything. Are you sure? Some of this stuff is pretty graphic. Send it all. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in my truck in the parking lot of a half-built shopping center, scrolling through the evidence of my wife's betrayal. The photos were intimate, taken in hotel rooms and Brady's downtown loft. The text messages were worse, not just sexual, but cruel. They made jokes about me, calling me the caveman and Elena's charity case. One message from Elena made my hands shake. He actually thought we were going to Italy together. Can you imagine me stuck in some tourist trap with him for 2 weeks? I'd rather die. Brady's response. Poor guy doesn't know what he's losing, but his loss is my gain. Elena. Not for much longer. I'm thinking of filing for divorce after the holidays. I'll take half of everything and finally be free. I sat in that truck for an hour, reading every message, studying every photo. By the time I was done, the hurt had transformed into something else entirely. Cold, calculating anger. That night, I went to Darla's Diner. The evening crowd was different from the morning rush. More locals, fewer workers. Darla herself was behind the counter, a tough woman in her 50s who'd raised 3 kids alone after her husband died in Iraq. Nick Parrish, she said, pouring me coffee without being asked. You look like a man with something on his mind. Darla, that thing you mentioned to Terry about Elena. Her expression grew serious. Honey, I probably shouldn't have said anything. No, you should have. I need to know what you saw. She glanced around the diner, then leaned closer. I've seen her at the Riverside Hotel bar 3, maybe 4 times in the past month, always with the same guy. Tall, dark hair, fancy suit. They weren't exactly hiding what they were doing. Brady Kessler? That's him. Drives that red sports car, tips big to impress the waitresses. She paused. Nick, I'm sorry. I know this ain't easy to hear. What else do people know? Enough. Sarah Chen from the bank mentioned seeing them at that new French restaurant downtown. Mike Rodriguez from the hardware store saw them coming out of a hotel in broad daylight. People talk, honey. They always do. I nodded, sipping the bitter coffee. Thanks for being honest. What are you going to do? I'm still figuring that out. The next day was Friday, and I knew from Elena's messages that she was planning to leave for Chicago with Brady right after work. She'd told me she was going to visit her sister in Milwaukee for the weekend. I spent the morning at our biggest job site, a luxury housing development on the north side of town, but I couldn't concentrate on work. My crew kept asking if I was feeling okay. Around noon, Terry pulled me aside. Boss, whatever you're planning, be careful. Don't do anything that'll land you in jail. I'm not going to hurt anyone, Terry, but I'm not going to be a doormat anymore either. That afternoon, I drove to Meridian Architecture's office building downtown. It was one of those modern glass towers that looked impressive, but had no soul. I parked across the street and waited. At 5:30, Elena emerged from the building with Brady Kessler. He was exactly what I'd expected. Tall, handsome in a polished way, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people made in a month. They walked to his red Porsche, laughing about something. I followed them at a distance as they drove to the Riverside Hotel. They went inside together, Brady's hand on the small of Elena's back, in a gesture that should have been mine. I sat in the hotel parking lot for 2 hours, watching their silhouettes in a third-floor window. When they finally came back down, they were carrying overnight bags. Elena had changed into a tight red dress I'd never seen before. As they loaded their bags into Brady's Porsche, I made my decision. I drove to the nearest hardware store and bought a few items. Nothing illegal, nothing dangerous, just tools for a different kind of construction project. Then I went home and waited. Elena came home around 9, claiming she'd been at a work happy hour. I'm leaving early tomorrow morning to visit Jennifer in Milwaukee, she said, not meeting my eyes. I'll be back Sunday night. Have fun, I said simply. She looked surprised by my calm response. You're not going to argue? Why would I argue? You're a grown woman. You can visit your sister whenever you want. That night, she packed her bag while I pretended to watch television. I noticed she included the red dress, along with lingerie I'd never seen her wear for me. Good night, she said, kissing my cheek with lips that felt cold. Good night, Elena. Enjoy your trip. Saturday morning. She left at 8 a.m. sharp. I watched from the kitchen window as she drove away in her silver BMW, probably heading to meet Brady somewhere before they continued to Chicago together. I gave her a 30-minute head start, then got to work. First, I called Jennifer, Elena's sister in Milwaukee. Nick? Jennifer sounded surprised. Is everything okay? I was just wondering if you had plans with Elena this weekend. There was a pause. Plans with Elena? No, why? She said she was coming to visit you. Another pause, longer this time. Nick, I haven't talked to Elena in 3 weeks. She's not coming here. I see. Thanks, Jennifer. Nick, is everything? I hung up before she could finish the question. Next, I drove to Brady's downtown loft building. I'd looked up his address online. He lived in one of those converted warehouse buildings that catered to young professionals with more money than sense. The building had a parking garage, and I knew from Elena's messages that Brady parked his Porsche on the second level, space 247. The garage was easy to access. The security gate was broken, probably had been for weeks. I found Brady's red Porsche exactly where I expected it to be. I didn't damage the car. That would have been too obvious, too crude. Instead, I used my hardware store purchases to create something more subtle, but infinitely more effective. I carefully removed the valve stems from all 4 tires, letting the air out slowly and quietly. Then I opened a container of liquid fish fertilizer, the kind used for gardens, completely legal to purchase and possess, and poured it under the driver's seat through a crack in the window. The smell wouldn't be noticeable immediately, but after a few hours in the Chicago heat, Brady's expensive car would reek like a fish market in August. Finally, I used a washable marker to write "honk if you're cheating" on the rear window. It would come off easily with soap and water, but not before causing maximum embarrassment. I was back home by 11 a.m., with a solid alibi. I'd stopped at 3 different stores and made sure to chat with people who knew me. The rest of Saturday passed quietly. I worked in my basement workshop, organized my tools, and tried not to think about what Elena and Brady were doing in their Chicago hotel room. Sunday evening, Elena came home looking tanned and relaxed. She was humming as she unpacked her bag, a sound I hadn't heard from her in months. "How was Milwaukee?" I asked. "Oh, you know Jennifer, same as always." She didn't even blink while lying to my face. "How was your weekend?" "Productive. Got a lot done around the house." She nodded absently, already distracted by her phone. Probably texting Brady about what a wonderful time they'd had. Monday morning, I was at the construction site when Zane called. "Uncle Nick, you need to see this. Elena's been texting Brady all morning. Apparently his car was vandalized while they were in Chicago." "Really? That's unfortunate." "Yeah. Someone let the air out of his tires and poured something that smells like dead fish inside the car. He's furious. Says it's going to cost him $2,000 to get the smell out." "Yeah." I tried to sound concerned. "Did they call the police?" "Brady wanted to, but Elena talked him out of it. She's worried about being connected to the incident. Apparently the parking garage has security cameras." "Yeah, of course it did. I'd been counting on that." Tuesday brought more interesting news. Terry stopped by the job site with coffee and gossip. "You hear about Brady Kessler?" he asked, grinning. "What about him?" "Word is his fancy Porsche got vandalized over the weekend. Smells so bad he can't drive it. He's been taking Ubers all week." "That's too bad." I hammered a nail with perhaps more force than necessary. "Yeah, real shame. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy." Terry's sarcasm wasn't lost on me. He knew exactly what I'd done, and he approved. Wednesday evening, Elena came home in a foul mood. She'd been short-tempered all week, snapping at me over trivial things like leaving dishes in the sink or watching television too loudly. "Bad day at work?" I asked. "You could say that." She poured herself a large glass of wine. "Someone's been spreading rumors about me." I looked up from my newspaper. "What kind of rumors?" "Stupid gossip. You know how people are in this town." I did indeed know how people were in this town. Darla had probably mentioned Elena's hotel visits to a few more customers. Sarah Chen had likely shared what she'd seen at the French restaurant. Mike Rodriguez wasn't known for keeping secrets. In a place like Millbrook, reputation mattered. Elena's carefully constructed image as a successful, sophisticated professional was starting to crack. Thursday brought the phone call I'd been expecting. "Mr. Parrish, this is Detective Morrison with the Millbrook Police Department." My heart skipped a beat. "How can I help you, Detective?" "We're investigating a vandalism incident that occurred over the weekend. A Mr. Brady Kessler reported that his vehicle was damaged while parked in a downtown garage. We're talking to people who might have information. I'm not sure how I can help. I don't know Mr. Kessler personally." "Well, sir, we understand your wife works at the same company as Mr. Kessler. We're just trying to establish if there might be any connection." I kept my voice steady. "My wife works at Meridian Architecture, yes, but I've never met Brady Kessler, and I was home all weekend. You can check with my neighbors if you need to verify that." "That won't be necessary right now, Mr. Parrish. We're just gathering information. Have a good day." After I hung up, I realized I was sweating despite the cool October air. But I'd told the truth. I had been home all weekend, at least officially, and I'd been careful not to do anything that would leave evidence. Friday afternoon, Elena came home early from work. She looked upset, her usually perfect makeup smudged, her hair disheveled. "They fired me," she said without preamble. I looked up from my laptop where I'd been reviewing construction schedules. "What?" "Meridian Architecture. They fired me today." She collapsed onto the couch, still wearing her coat. "They said there were concerns about my professional conduct and that my position was being eliminated." I'm sorry to hear that, and I was sorry that it had taken them so long to realize what kind of person they'd hired. They wouldn't give me specifics, but I know what this is about. Someone's been spreading lies about me and Brady. "What kind of lies?" She looked at me sharply. "Don't play dumb, Nick. I know you've heard the gossip." I set down my laptop and gave her my full attention. "What gossip would that be, Elena?" "People are saying," she paused, struggling with the words. "They're saying I'm having an affair." "Are you?" The question hung in the air between us like smoke. Elena's green eyes widened, and for a moment I saw something that might have been fear. "How can you even ask me that? It's a simple question. Are you having an affair with Brady Kessler?" She stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. "I can't believe this. My own husband doesn't trust me. My own wife won't answer a direct question." She spun around to face me. "Fine. You want the truth? Brady and I are friends. Close friends. He's been helping me with my career, giving me advice, supporting my ambitions. Something you've never done. Is that what you call it when you spend weekends at hotels together? Her face went pale. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the photos Zane had recovered from her messages. Elena and Brady kissing in what looked like a hotel room. Where did you get that? She whispered. Does it matter? The question is, how long has this been going on? Elena sank back onto the couch, her defiance crumbling. Nick, I can explain. Explain what? That you canceled our honeymoon to pay for romantic getaways with your boyfriend? That you've been lying to me for months? That you and Brady sit around making jokes about what a fool I am? Tears started running down her cheeks, but they looked more like tears of frustration than remorse. You don't understand. Brady and I have a connection. He sees my potential, encourages my dreams. He makes me feel alive in a way I haven't felt in years. And what do I make you feel? Trapped, she said quietly. Like I'm suffocating. The honesty was brutal, but at least it was honest. So why didn't you just ask for a divorce instead of sneaking around behind my back? Because, she wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Because I wasn't sure what I wanted. And because I knew you'd try to take everything in a divorce. Everything? Elena, I built this business from nothing. I've supported you for 20 years, paid for your college classes, your car, your clothes, your business, she interrupted. Your house, your truck, your life. What about what I want? What do you want? I want to be with someone who appreciates me, someone who sees me as more than just a construction worker's wife. I looked at this woman I'd been married to for 2 decades, and I realized I didn't know her at all. The Elena I'd fallen in love with had been grateful for what we'd built together. This Elena saw it all as a prison. Fine, I said calmly. You want out? You're out. She looked surprised. What do you mean? I mean, I want you gone by tomorrow night. Take whatever clothes and personal items you need. But everything else stays here. You can't just kick me out. This is my house too. Actually, it's not. The house is in my name only. I bought it before we got married, and I've paid every mortgage payment for 20 years. Elena's face went white. But we're married. I have rights. Yes, you do. You have the right to hire a lawyer and file for divorce. But you don't have the right to live in my house while you're sleeping with another man. She stared at me like I was a stranger. Nick, please, can't we work this out? Maybe go to counseling or… Elena, you told me you felt trapped and suffocating. I'm setting you free. Isn't that what you wanted? I don't know. I'm confused. Brady and I, we never talked about living together or getting married. It was just fun. Well, maybe now you'll have a chance to find out if it's more than fun. That evening, Elena called Brady. I could hear her side of the conversation from the kitchen while she talked in the living room. Brady, I need to stay at your place for a while. What do you mean that's not a good idea? But Nick is kicking me out. I thought you cared about me. Brady, please don't do this. When she hung up, she was crying again. Real tears this time. Let me guess, I said. Brady's not ready to play house? He says his place is too small for 2 people, that we should take things slow. Sounds like a keeper. She glared at me through her tears. Don't be cruel, Nick. I know you're hurt, but don't be cruel. Cruel? Elena, I've been nothing but kind to you for 20 years. I've worked 60-hour weeks to give you everything you wanted. I've supported your dreams, encouraged your ambitions, and loved you even when you made it clear you didn't love me back. If I'm being cruel now, it's because I'm finally treating you the way you've been treating me. Saturday morning, Elena packed 2 suitcases and loaded them into her BMW. She'd found a furnished apartment across town. Nothing fancy, but it was available immediately and didn't require a long-term lease. This isn't over, she said as she prepared to leave. I'm going to file for divorce, and I'm going to fight for what's rightfully mine. That's your choice. But Elena, you might want to think carefully about what you're entitled to. Adultery is still grounds for divorce in this state, and I have plenty of evidence. She drove away without another word. The house felt strange without her, quieter, but also somehow lighter. I spent the weekend cleaning out her closet and removing her personal items from our bedroom. It was like erasing 20 years of shared history, one photograph and knick-knack at a time. Monday morning, I was back at work, trying to focus on the Henderson project, a custom home for a young couple who reminded me of Elena and myself 20 years ago. They were so excited about every detail, so grateful for everything we were building for them. Terry found me standing in what would be their master bedroom, staring out the unfinished window at the October landscape. You okay, boss? I will be. I turned to face him. Elena moved out Saturday. I heard. Word travels fast in this town. What else are people saying? Terry shrugged. That it was a long time coming. That you deserve better. That Brady Kessler is a piece of shit who got what he deserved. What do you mean, got what he deserved? Haven't you heard? Meridian Architecture fired him Friday afternoon. Same day they let Elena go. Apparently, the partners decided that employees who can't maintain professional boundaries are bad for business. I tried to look surprised. Both of them got fired? Both of them. And get this, Brady's ex-wife is taking him back to court for increased alimony. Says his lifestyle has clearly improved since their divorce, so he can afford to pay more. I had to admire the poetic justice of it all. Brady had lost his job, his car was still reeking of fish, and now his ex-wife was coming after his money. What about Elena? Has she found another job? Not yet, but good luck to her. Word is that Meridian's partners have been talking to their contacts at other firms. Professional courtesy, you know, making sure everyone knows why she was let go. In a small city like Millbrook, reputation was everything. Elena's career in architecture and public relations was effectively over. That evening I was having dinner at Darla's diner when Jennifer walked in. Elena's sister looked uncomfortable, like she'd rather be anywhere else. Nick, can we talk? I gestured to the empty chair across from me. Of course. How are you doing, Jennifer? I'm worried about Elena. She called me this morning, crying. She says you threw her out of the house. I asked her to leave after I found out she was having an affair. I think that's reasonable. Jennifer sighed. She told me about Brady. She says it was a mistake, that she wants to work things out with you. What do you think I should do? I think... Jennifer paused, choosing her words carefully. I think Elena has always been selfish. Even when we were kids, she expected everyone else to clean up her messes. But she's still my sister, and she's scared. Scared of what? Of being alone. Of starting over at 36, with no job and no money. She's not as strong as she pretends to be. I nodded, understanding. Jennifer, I don't hate Elena, but I can't be married to someone who lies to me and cheats on me. She made her choice when she decided to have an affair. I know. And honestly, I think you're doing the right thing. Elena needs to learn that actions have consequences. 2 weeks later, Elena called me at work. Nick, we need to talk. About what? About our divorce. I've been to see a lawyer. And he says that given the circumstances, I'm not entitled to much. The house is yours, the business is yours, and the evidence of my affair means I can't claim spousal support. That sounds about right. There was a long pause. Nick, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't change anything, but I want you to know that I'm sorry. Sorry for having the affair, or sorry you got caught. Both, I guess. I never meant for things to go this far. I felt so trapped, so invisible. Brady made me feel special. You were special, Elena. You were my wife. I loved you more than anything in the world. I know. And I threw it all away for something that wasn't even real. What do you mean? Brady won't return my calls. The minute things got complicated, he disappeared. Turns out he was seeing 2 other women the whole time we were together. I felt a stab of something that might have been pity. I'm sorry to hear that. No, you're not, and you shouldn't be. I deserve everything that's happened to me. Elena, I don't want you to suffer. I just want to move on with my life. I know. I'll sign whatever papers you want me to sign. I won't fight you on anything. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Elena signed away any claim to the house, the business, or spousal support. In exchange, I agreed to pay her legal fees and give her $5,000 to help her get back on her feet. She moved to Milwaukee to be closer to Jennifer, taking a job as a receptionist at a small marketing firm. It wasn't the glamorous career she'd dreamed of, but it was honest work. Brady Kessler left town shortly after his divorce from Elena became public knowledge. Word was that he'd moved to Denver, where nobody knew about his reputation for sleeping with married women and vandalizing cars. 6 months after Elena left, I was sitting in my basement workshop when Terry stopped by with a 6-pack of beer. Thought you might want some company, he said, handing me a bottle. Thanks. I took a long drink, enjoying the cold bite of the beer. You know, I thought I'd be angrier. About Elena. About all of it. The affair, the lies, the wasted years. But mostly I just feel relieved. Terry nodded. You did the right thing, Nick. You could have made it ugly, could have destroyed her completely, but you didn't. I thought about it. There were moments when I wanted to ruin her the way she ruined our marriage. But you didn't. No, I didn't. I looked around my workshop, my sanctuary, the place where I'd always come to think and plan and build. You know what the funny thing is? She was right about feeling trapped. We both were. We'd grown into different people, wanted different things. Maybe if we'd been honest about that earlier, we could have ended things without all the pain and betrayal. Maybe, but that's not how it happened. No, it's not. I raised my beer bottle in a mock toast. Here's to new beginnings. And to old friends, Terry added, clinking his bottle against mine. A year later, I ran into Elena at the grocery store during one of my trips to Milwaukee to visit Jennifer's family. She looked different, older, maybe, but also somehow more real. She was wearing jeans and a simple sweater instead of her usual designer clothes, and her hair was shorter, more practical. "Nick," she said, looking genuinely surprised to see me. How are you?" I'm good, really good. How about you?" I'm okay, getting by." She paused. "I heard you're seeing someone." I nodded. "Sarah Chen. You remember her from the bank. The one who used to process your business loans. She's nice." "She is. We're taking things slow, but it's good." Elena smiled, and for the first time in years, it looked genuine. "I'm glad. You deserve to be happy." "So do you, Elena." "I'm working on it. I'm in therapy now, trying to figure out why I made such a mess of everything." "That's good. That's really good." We stood there for a moment in the cereal aisle. Two people who had once promised to love each other forever, now just polite strangers sharing small talk. "Nick," Elena said as I started to walk away. "Thank you." "For what?" "For not destroying me when you could have. For letting me keep some dignity, even after what I did." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something I hadn't seen in years. Humility, growth, maybe even wisdom. "We all make mistakes, Elena. The important thing is learning from them." She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "I did learn. Too late to save our marriage, but I learned. It's never too late to become a better person." As I walked away, I felt something I hadn't expected. Forgiveness. Not the kind that meant I wanted her back or that what she'd done was okay, but the kind that meant I was finally, truly free from the anger and hurt that had consumed me for so long. Elena had wanted her freedom, and in